Trinidad Chambliss's emergence could make Lane Kiffin's offense unstoppable, but what happens when Austin Simmons gets healthy?
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast around. I'm your host, Steven Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former Ole Miss staff member. On today's show, we will talk about which games from week 4 that have our attention going into it. We'll talk about this week's leans and locks presented by FanDuel as we break down some of the best matchups of the weekend. And next, we'll ask the big question: should Ole Miss fans have real concern about the Rebels' defense this season? And what, if anything, can be done to help it out? But first, we start with the storyline that might make this offense absolutely unstoppable moving forward: the emergence of Trinidad Chambliss, paired with Austin Simmons. When he gets healthy, Ole Miss could have some fun problems for Lane Kiffin to manage. All of that and more on today's Locked On Ole Miss podcast. We're free and available on all the podcast app platforms and on YouTube. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day, and a big shout out to the insiders and everydayers who make the show what it is. And what it is the most fun way to follow Ole Miss sports. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, customers can bet just $5, and if that bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. So it's really interesting because the will he, won't he, what's going on at quarterback last week, Lane Kiffin honestly did a masterful job of playing quarterback and naming stuff because nobody knew for sure the whole week who was going to play. And if you go look at the Arkansas message boards, they were really confused about that as well. Now, Trinidad Chambliss got the start and went out and had an amazing performance. He surprised the whole Ole Miss fan base by going out and throwing for 353 yards and overall leading Ole Miss and looking really good doing it. It's one of those things to where you pop in. Is he the starter? Is Austin Simmons going to get Wally pipped? What is that going to look like? I'm not 100% sure, but that's a Lane Kiffin problem. That's probably a good problem to have. He was 21 of 29 in the game, 353 yards and a touchdown. A lot of passes down the field, throwing outside because Arkansas was forced to play up to stop the run. That's the only way they could. They have a problem with their defensive line. That means the linebackers and the safeties have to be ready to crash up towards the line of scrimmage to stop the run, because it's kind of a death by 1,000 cuts, and they took the gamble that Trinidad Chambliss would struggle throwing the ball deep, and he might have accuracy issues, or maybe the SEC defense could speed him up to the point where he would not be successful, as opposed to Ole Miss handing it off to Keywan Lacey or running zone reads all day long, because death by 1,000 cuts of running the ball, it's the surefire way to lose in this league. Because when he transferred from Ferris State, he finished third in the Harlan Hill Trophy, which is the Division II Heisman Trophy. But when he was at Ferris State last year, he ended up 226 for 367 yards, 2,925 yards, I should say. He was 26 of 367, 2,925 yards, 26 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Now, the 29-25, that's a little bit deceptive because since they played in the national championship, he played 15 games. So it's actually closer to a little bit below 200 yards than the number that it appears. But Trinidad Chambliss was a really good player. He was a dominant player. He didn't throw for a ton of yards all the time, but he scored a lot of touchdowns. You see 26 touchdowns passing. He also had 25 touchdowns on the ground. He is an all-around type quarterback, and he performed against Arkansas at a level that he should be commended. You talk about a person that wasn't rattled at all by the moment, coming in and taking all of that over and just coolly and calmly going through and just hitting play after play after play over the course of the game to the point where Arkansas couldn't really stop him, and only Ole Miss could stop Ole Miss in this game. Now, some of that has to do with the fact that Arkansas is such a bad defense. They are not good. But part of that has to do with Trinidad Chambliss knowing how to move the football playing quarterback, either through his on his feet or throwing the ball. The scheme that Lane Kiffin had was absolutely perfect. And the scheme that Lane Kiffin has had over the last 2 weeks, the way he's coached the game, has been nearly perfect. You're seeing a very mature Lane Kiffin that is playing winning football. And winning football is something that is being instilled in these players. Listen, against Kentucky, against Arkansas, it was one-score games. They won them both. They lost every one-score game a year ago. I think last year's team loses this game as well. I think last year's team loses against Kentucky and loses this game. As talented as they were in one-score games, they did not have a plan B to kind of figure it out. So this game was really similar to the 2023 Ole Miss LSU game. And the emergence of Trinidad Chambliss with big numbers makes everybody wonder what's next. Now, against Tulane, he should absolutely start. There should be no question about it. I'm sure some games are going to be played this week, but Trinidad Chambliss should take every snap against Tulane. Get Austin Simmons healthy. Once Austin Simmons becomes healthy, whether it be LSU or Georgia or Oklahoma, you can set it up a situation to where you have a true two-quarterback system. And I know the old saying, if you have two quarterbacks, you don't have one, but I'm thinking more along the lines of what the Florida Gators did in the mid-2000s with Tim Tebow and Chris Leak. That is what I'm thinking in this game, to where the quarterback run game and his ability to throw the ball is going to make a defense have to prepare for two different things whenever they match up. We will see, because Austin Simmons is an absolute gamer. You saw that in this game against Arkansas. He was obviously hurt much worse than was being let on. His ankle was worse than we expected. He did not practice over the course of the week. He actually had a pretty good workout, and he practiced the last 2 days, but there was a little bit of concern there as well. But Austin Simmons, even though his plant foot was problematic, came in against Arkansas after Trinidad Chambliss had to come out of the game because of a bloody thumb, and ran for a first down and got himself re-hurt, re-aggravated the injury, and on the very next play, he threw a touchdown pass to Harrison Wallace. Austin Simmons is a gamer, and I don't want to take away from what Austin Simmons can do and why he's there with what happened against Arkansas completely. I love what Trinidad Chambliss did. I think he absolutely needs to be the starter for the Tulane Green Wave. But if Trinidad Chambliss was the better quarterback, he would have won the job. Or they would have done something between the two quarterbacks to where it was one or the other. Or thinking about that, what they did with Jackson Dart and what they did with Luke Altmaier and that. You know that Lane Kiffin is not afraid to do that. So I think pump the brakes a little bit on Trinidad is the guy, but we need to see a little bit more sample size. If he does the same thing against Tulane, he should get the start in the next game against LSU. If he does the same thing against LSU, he should get the start the next game against Washington State. Once Austin Simmons gets healthy, though, this becomes something that Lane Kiffin has to deal with. And it's a good problem to have, especially for the Ole Miss fan base, because you know you have two quarterbacks that can win games, that can do separate things, that causes the other team to prepare for them differently. Both of them are really good in their own right. Austin Simmons is the NFL prototype 1-1 level talent as far as what he can do. Trinidad Chambliss is just a guy that won a national championship in college already, even though it was at the D2 level, that just knows how to win ball games. This is an unbelievably good problem to have for Lane Kiffin, and we'll see exactly how that works out. We'll see if that is the way it goes. Is Austin Simmons going to play in the future, or is Trinidad Chambliss about to Wally Pip this? We will see how it goes. Lane Kiffin's got a lot of fun decisions to make over the next couple of weeks. Listen, is Saturday night cause for concern on the defense? I think yes, but not panic. Lane Kiffin has enough power to outscore most of the teams, but until the Rebels prove they can consistently win at the line of scrimmage and eliminate explosive plays against mobile quarterbacks, this will remain a kryptonite, especially with John Mateer and Lenora Sellers and Retzlaff, the quarterback at Tulane, coming in this weekend. We'll break down exactly how Ole Miss can address these flaws and whether or not this is a blip for opponents next. Quick question for all you college football fans out there. If you could go back in time and sit in the front row of your school's biggest rivalry game, what hat would you be wearing? Yeah, I said hat. For me, it would be the game. These aren't just hats. They are the same vintage hats and styles worn back in the 80s and 90s. And guess what? They still go for the same price as they did back then. When you use the code Locked On, you will get your vintage hat for $16.99. Head to thegamecaps.com. That is thegamecaps.com, and grab your team's exclusive classic bar design or retro circle design and use the code Locked On, all one word, for an exclusive discount. Because legends wear the game. You know, caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5-Hour Energy Shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with zero sugar and zero crashes. What I love the most is how portable they are. Big taste, tiny shot. You can take it absolutely anywhere and get that boost when you need it. Honestly, I love how fast it kicks in, and that is sugar-free, so I don't have to worry about crashing a little bit later. Enough with the boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5-Hour Energy Shots. Get the favorites you love and be bold and try something new in store and online at 5hourenergy.com. That's the number 5hourenergy.com or at Amazon today. Do us a favor and like and subscribe and comment on the video. Subscribe to the podcast on whatever audio podcatcher you're watching it and give it a 5-star review. It costs absolutely nothing, but it keeps everything here free. If you want more, join the Insiders program in the subtext link down below. No trolls, 14-day free trial, and the easiest way ever to cancel. I know, canceling these subscription services can be a pain. This is unbelievably easy, so give it a try. And don't forget to check out a second listen on the network. Nearly every team, college and pro, is ready for you, including Corey Burton and Locked On Vandy, and they are good, for goodness sake. Man, it's kind of impressive to see the Vanderbilt Commodores and what they are this season. So the question is it time to worry about the Ole Miss defense after the Arkansas game? And I think concern is the right word. You should be concerned about this, especially with the inability to kind of stop mobile quarterbacks. Some of that, in my opinion, is putting Xavier Harris out at strong side defensive end, who just isn't quite quick enough to catch a Taylon Green or John Mateer or whoever these quarterbacks are that you're going to see. Some of this has to do with the fact that Ole Miss just doesn't have many sacks this year. Ole Miss doesn't have that many explosive plays this year. Ole Miss has dropped interceptions. I think 3 interceptions against Arkansas. One of my keys for the game is he's going to throw you the ball, catch it. That's all you had to do. Ole Miss did not catch it, kept drives alive, and Arkansas kind of got in their bag and was able to score some points. Arkansas was really good offensively in this game. Make no mistake, Bobby Petrino really figured something out in this game. Ole Miss won the game 40-35 and got a turnover at the end of the game to pull it away. But that's the only turnover of the game. And if you look at the second half, Ole Miss only gave up 7 points. So as bad as they were in the first half, and they were really bad in the first half. They were awful in the first half. They were better in the second half. And that's important that you point stuff like that out. When you don't, it kind of makes you look one-sided or the other. Over the course of the whole game, Arkansas ended up with 526 yards, 300 yards passing, 200 yards rushing. Taylor Green had another 100-yard day on the ground. This defense kind of got worked Saturday night. Now, it took Ole Miss's offense being really, really good to overcome it. And it's one of those things that Ole Miss has the offense to overcome this against most teams. Where they need to really have a good performance defensively is when they're having to deal with really good teams coming in. That's on the road at Georgia, on the road at Oklahoma. I don't know if South Carolina is a good team after they got completely worked by Vanderbilt. I don't know if Florida is a good team anymore. The schedule that looked even daunting 2 months ago now doesn't look so bad. There's still some games that you can lose. There's still some teams that are better than they were expected to be on your schedule. But overall, this schedule does not look as difficult. Suntarine Perkins kind of showed up in the second half of this game for Ole Miss. His athleticism, he was all over the field. He led the team in tackles with 9, had 1 TFL. Still waiting on the first sack from Suntarine Perkins after 3 games, but at least that one kind of started, because what you were worried about is you kept looking down at the stat sheet during the game and the leading tackler was Kapina Gushikin or Nick Call or some safety, and that doesn't work. When Ole Miss's defense is kind of clicking, the linebackers are the most dominant tacklers on the field. But Ole Miss has to figure out a way to get explosives defensively. Again, they're not doing that right now. This Ole Miss defense looks remarkably similar to the 2023 defense. Now, granted, that team won 11 games over the course of the season. This isn't me poo-pooing that defense at all. But after we just came off the 2024 defense, it looks different. Remember, in 2023, Georgia was really good offensively in Athens. LSU ran up and down the field on the Ole Miss Rebels. This defense, if it compares favorably to that defense, you're going to need an extremely strong offense. And we talked about the first segment of the show about the unstoppableness of the offense once Austin Simmons gets healthy and you have a Trinidad Chambliss. There's a chance that Lane Kiffin can bake some stuff up. Okay? If he is truly the offensive genius that we all think he is, this is a scenario that you should be in favor of. I think Austin Simmons is going to get healthy, come back, and be a really good quarterback. Trinidad Chambliss, he's a really good quarterback. The way that I think that Ole Miss fans should look at it is they have 2. And everybody has the saying, if you have 2, you don't have 1. That's not the case in this one. That's not the way this works. You had somebody that stepped on the field Saturday night and made plays. And the defense tried to let him down. Defense tried to make it difficult. But once Ole Miss got out to a 2-score lead, you could kind of excel a little bit. And the defense took control, only giving up 7 points in the second half and getting the key fumble at the end. So is there reason to worry about this Ole Miss defense? And I was like, I don't think panic is the right word. So there's not reason to panic about this defense. I think you should genuinely be concerned, especially with Georgia and Oklahoma and some of the mobile quarterbacks coming up on the schedule. Maybe this was a game plan thing and they just thought something was going to happen and it just didn't. They were just wrong. That happens from time to time. But Ole Miss was a better team than Arkansas, as everybody likely saw. But Arkansas offensively is really good. They are. And Mike Washington, the running back, he had that busted play where he scored from like 50 yards out. He had 15 yards the rest of the game. The key to stopping Arkansas offense is stopping the running back running game. Put it all on Taylor Green and just kind of roll the dice. And he almost had a specialty performance for the ages, but he didn't. And that's good news. So I'm going to take that positive of the defense at Ole Miss making plays when they need to. But I am also going to be concerned moving forward, especially with the mobile quarterbacks on the schedule. In our final segment, we check out this week's leans and locks for the SEC with lines from FanDuel, where I'm leading and which games feel like safe bets. Coming up next. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right means cashing in. With football back, Prize Picks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes. All of that in less than 60 seconds. I've been playing Prize Picks lately, and it's such a fun way to stay locked into the NFL season. It's a quick and easy and honestly my favorite way to follow along with football. And the best part, even if one of your picks misses, Prize Picks invented the flex play, so you can still double your money. So download the Prize Picks apps today and use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play that first $5 lineup. That's the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $50 in lineups after you play that first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if that bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little bit more energy to Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app today by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com, the place to place that first $5 bet. You know, when you look at this week's schedule, it might be a little bit lighter, especially with last week having, the Ole Miss Arkansas game was the third most drunk SEC game of the weekend. And the Ole Miss Arkansas game is always stupid. There's always weird things that go on in that game. But it was the number 3 game of the weekend behind Georgia beating Tennessee in overtime, which was a fantastic game. And A&M able to win in South Bend, Indiana against Notre Dame. Then came the Ole Miss Arkansas game. It was just a drunk game, but Ole Miss made plays necessary to win. First time Ole Miss has won 3 in a row in that series since 90, 91, and 92, something like that. Billy Brewer was the last coach that did that. But this week is interesting in the Southeastern Conference because Arkansas, after what you saw this weekend, Taylor Green going off, they're going to the Liberty Bowl this weekend. They're 5.5-point favorites against Memphis. The game is at noon on ABC. I'm pretty fired up about what that could be. If you look at, this is the second time this year that Memphis has taken Ole Miss's seconds, essentially. The week after Ole Miss beat Georgia State 63-7, Memphis played Georgia State. Ended up giving up 350 yards passing in that game, by the way. And Georgia State struggled to throw the ball against the Ole Miss Rebels, but I digress on that one. But this game will be Memphis dealing with Arkansas right after Ole Miss played Arkansas. So Memphis taking seconds right here is interesting. I like Arkansas in this game. Their offense is really good. UAB is at Tennessee. It's a 39.5-point line. That's a lot of points, especially after an emotional victory or loss against the Georgia Bulldogs. And we all know how that can be taking a toll, but their offense runs so quickly, there's just a chance they just score really quick. They have explosive, and the game's basically over. I don't know much about UAB, but that's an awful lot of points. Missouri is hosting South Carolina. Missouri's favored by 11.5. Missouri is the most underrated team in the Southeastern Conference this year. South Carolina, as Lenore Sellers did not finish against Vanderbilt, in their 31-7 loss at home to Vanderbilt, South Carolina fans. Get out of my chat. Get out of my comments. You officially have nothing left to say. And also, Vandy might just need to be described as a good team. They're pretty good. So we'll see. Missouri's favored by 11.5. Miami's favored by 9.5 over the Florida Gators. The Billy Napier fired watch is well underway. We'll see how that goes. Ole Miss is favored by 12.5 points over Tulane. Game is at 2:30 on ESPN on Saturday. We'll see exactly what that looks like. Tulane's a good team. They're not as good offensively as Arkansas. They are better defensively than Arkansas, but they're not as good defensively as Kentucky. But if you take the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball, Tulane might be a better team as a whole. That makes sense at all. So we'll see exactly how that goes. Auburn is at Oklahoma. Oklahoma's a 4.5-point favorite. That's going to be a fun game. Auburn's undefeated. Oklahoma's undefeated. John Mateer has looked really good. Mississippi State's favored by 22.5 points over Northern Illinois. We'll see how that looks. Mississippi State should easily win that game. Vanderbilt's favored by 27.5 over Georgia State. It's weird seeing plus 25 lines with Vanderbilt. That's hard for me to get used to seeing. But Georgia State beat Vandy a year ago, so we'll see exactly how that goes. Southeast Louisiana is a no-line game at LSU. LSU's offense has not looked very good this year. They're just not right for whatever reason. And leading into the Ole Miss game, this is kind of their warm-up of getting ready for that. Ole Miss has Tulane. They have Southeastern Louisiana. And finally, you have Sam Houston at Texas. Texas is favored by 41.5 points. That is way too many points for this offensive team. I think the safest bet might be Sam Houston in this one, because I don't know if Texas can score 41.5 points against Air right now. So we'll see exactly how that looks. Good team. I mean, everything's going to be fine, I'm sure, with them, but that's way too many points. So thank you so much for stopping by and having a good time with us today. And thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves on offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we are the front door of Ole Miss. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. It helps the show, and it's completely free. Your support means the world to us. In another big moment for Locked On, college football fans, Locked On and Fire TV are presenting College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside two-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts. A Locked On preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. Howdy toddy, everybody. Remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you tomorrow.